For more than half a century, humans have stayed remarkably close to home the last time anyone ventured beyond low Earth orbit. The year was 1972, that was Apollo 17. The final mission of a program that had captivated the world. Since then, every astronaut has remained within a few hundred miles of our planet's surface. Artemis II is about to break that 50-year silence when the Space Launch System rocket lifts off from Kennedy Space Center. It will carry 4 astronauts on a 10-day journey that circles the Moon and returns to Earth. The launch is targeted for April 2026. And while the mission duration might seem brief compared to months-long stays on the International Space Station, the distance traveled will be unlike anything attempted in decades. What makes this flight genuinely historic is how far the Orion spacecraft will travel from Earth. As the crew loops behind the far side of the Moon, they have the potential to travel farther from home than any human being has ever gone. That would break the distance record set during Apollo 13. Back in 1970, when that ill-fated mission reached a point roughly 248,000 miles away, the astronauts on Artemis II could surpass that mark, venturing into territory no person has ever seen with their own eyes. But breaking records is not really the point. The true purpose runs much deeper. This mission exists to verify that modern spacecraft can keep humans alive and functioning in deep space. Every critical system needs to work flawlessly before NASA can commit to landing astronauts on the lunar surface again. Life support, navigation, communication, manual, flying capabilities. All of it must be tested in the actual environment where future crews will live and work. Think of Artemis II as laying the foundation for everything that follows. It represents the essential first step toward sustained lunar exploration, a permanent surface presence, and eventually a gateway station in orbit around the Moon. This is not simply a return to the past, it is the necessary beginning of humanity becoming a true spacefaring civilization. The 4 astronauts selected for this mission represent something significant about how space exploration has evolved. Mission Commander Reid Wiseman leads the crew, bringing experience from his time aboard the International Space Station and a background as a naval aviator. He will be responsible for the overall success and safety of the flight, making critical decisions as Orion journeys around the Moon. Victor Glover serves as the mission pilot, also a naval aviator. Glover will actually fly the Orion spacecraft during key phases of the mission. This hands-on piloting role becomes especially important during the manual flight test scheduled shortly after launch, when the crew demonstrates their ability to control the spacecraft directly. Christina Koch rounds out the NASA contingent as a mission specialist. She brings an impressive record from her time on the space station, including the longest single spaceflight by a woman. Her expertise will be essential for managing the scientific objectives and spacecraft systems throughout the journey. The 4th seat belongs to Jeremy Hansen of the Canadian Space Agency. His presence on this historic mission reflects decades of international partnership. In human spaceflight, Canada has contributed robotics and astronaut training to space programs for years, and Hansen's selection demonstrates how deep space exploration depends on collaboration between nations. Once the intense launch phase concludes, the crew transitions to a more routine existence inside Orion. They store their bright orange launch and entry suits, trading them for comfortable clothing better suited for the long journey ahead. Each day includes a scheduled medical conference with doctors and support staff back on Earth, giving the astronauts a chance to discuss how they are feeling and address any physical concerns. These conversations help mission controllers monitor crew health throughout the 10-day voyage. The machines that will carry 4 humans 250,000 miles from Earth represent some of the most sophisticated engineering ever built. At the center of it all stands the Space Launch System, or SLS, a rocket that exists in a class entirely of its own. This is not just another launch vehicle. It is the only rocket currently capable of sending a crewed spacecraft along with its astronauts and cargo directly to the Moon. In a single launch, no other rocket can match what SLS delivers in terms of payload mass, volume, and departure energy. When you are trying to throw a spacecraft fast enough to escape Earth's gravity and reach the Moon, that raw power matters enormously. Perched atop this massive rocket sits the Orion spacecraft, and this particular Orion carries the name Integrity. It is a fitting name for a vehicle entrusted with human lives on such an ambitious journey. When Orion reaches space, it transforms 4 solar array wings, extend outward from the European service module, giving the spacecraft a wingspan of roughly 63 feet. Each wing is packed with 15,000 solar cells, all working to convert sunlight into the electricity that keeps the spacecraft running. These arrays are cleverly designed to rotate on 2 axes, allowing them to track the Sun as Orion tumbles through space on its way to the Moon. The European service module deserves recognition of its own. This component sits behind the crew capsule and serves as the beating heart of the spacecraft. It provides life support, power generation, and propulsion, everything the astronauts need to survive in the harsh environment of deep space. At launch, this module weighs in at about 13,500 kilograms. Every kilogram was carefully considered, every system designed to work in harmony as Orion ventures farther from Earth than any human-rated spacecraft has traveled in over 5 decades. The countdown reaches 0 at exactly 6:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and launch complex 39 billion at Kennedy Space Center erupts with fire and thunder. The Space Launch System rocket claws its way skyward, carrying 4 astronauts on the first leg of their journey toward the Moon. In those first seconds, the raw power is almost incomprehensible. The twin solid rocket boosters, attached to either side of the core stage, are doing the heavy lifting, each one standing 177 feet tall and generating more than 3.6 million pounds of thrust. Together, they provide most of the rocket's power during those critical first 2 minutes of flight. At the 2-minute mark, the boosters have done their job. They fall away, cleanly tumbling back toward the Atlantic Ocean. Below this separation is a precisely choreographed moment. The rocket is now lighter, and the core stage continues pushing Orion upward through progressively thinner air. Just 1 minute later, another piece of hardware falls away, the spacecraft adapter. Jettison fairings, separate from Orion, no longer needed now that the vehicle has climbed above the densest layers of atmosphere. The protective shroud that shielded the service module during the violent early moments of ascent is gone. The pace of events remains relentless. Main engine cutoff arrives next, marking the end of the core stage's work. The massive stage separates from what remains of the stack, falling away as the interim cryogenic propulsion stage takes over. Then comes a milestone that everyone in mission control has been waiting for. About 18 minutes after that first thunderous liftoff, the 4 solar array wings begin to unfurl. Each wing extends outward from the European service module, and when fully deployed, Orion has a wingspan of roughly 63 feet. These arrays are the spacecraft's lifeline. Their 15,000 solar cells will convert sunlight into electricity, powering every system the crew depends on for survival. With the arrays locked in place and drawing power, Orion is ready for the next phase. The perigee raise maneuver and apogee raise burn will adjust the spacecraft's orbit, raising both the lowest and highest points above Earth. These burns are not dramatic to watch from the outside, but they are essential. They prepare Orion for deep space operations, setting the stage for everything that follows in the mission ahead. Once Orion reaches its stable orbit, the real work begins. The crew faces a critical 70-minute demonstration that will test skills essential for future moon missions. This is called proximity operations, and it puts the astronauts in manual control of the spacecraft. For the first time, they carefully maneuver Orion relative to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, the upper rocket stage that helped get them to orbit. Think of it as a practice run for docking procedures when astronauts eventually return to the moon and need to connect with lunar landers or other spacecraft. They will rely on exactly these kinds of skills. The crew approaches the spent stage, backs away, and repeats the process while Mission Control watches closely. The testing does not stop there. The next 24 hours become a crucial checkout period for the entire vehicle. Launch is violent. The spacecraft shakes and endures incredible forces as it tears through the atmosphere. Now teams need to verify that everything still works properly. Life support systems get special attention. The astronauts depend on those systems for every breath, and any problem with them could end the mission before it truly begins. Controllers on the ground examine data, continuously looking for any sign that something went wrong during ascent. During this busy checkout period, the crew also manages smaller, but still important tasks. Tiny satellites called CubeSats, each about the size of a shoebox, deploy from the spacecraft. These small craft come from Germany, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, and Argentina. Each one carries instruments designed to measure different aspects of the harsh space environment. Not every problem is dramatic. At one point, the crew discovers an issue with the only toilet on board for a 10-day mission. This matters more than you might think. Christina Koch works through troubleshooting procedures with support from Mission Control, running tests until the system functions properly. It is the kind of unglamorous but essential problem solving that defines real spaceflight. About 24 hours after leaving Earth, Orion and its crew reach a pivotal moment. Everything has checked out. The spacecraft is healthy. Now it is time to leave Earth orbit and head for the moon. The maneuver is called the translunar injection burn, and it represents the point of no return when the European service module fires its main engine. Orion accelerates to nearly 25,000 miles per hour. This is the speed needed to escape Earth's gravitational grip and travel 250,000 miles to lunar space. For the next 4 days, the crew watches Earth shrink behind them. The spacecraft coasts through the void, carried by momentum from that single powerful burn. This quiet journey gives astronauts time to settle into their routine monitoring systems and staying in touch with Mission Control in Houston. As Orion approaches the moon, it will not slow down to enter orbit. Instead, it swings around the far side in what planners call a lunar flyby. The European service module provides one final push, guiding Orion to fly almost 7,500 kilometers beyond the moon's far side. No human has ever traveled that far from Earth. This path is deliberate. By swinging around the moon at just the right angle, Orion is placed on what engineers call a free return trajectory. The moon's gravity bends the spacecraft's path and flings it back toward Earth automatically. Even if something goes wrong, physics itself will bring the astronauts home. This capability is more than just a safety feature for this mission. It represents a stepping stone future missions will need to deliver. Components for the Gateway. The small space station NASA plans to build in lunar orbit. The European Space Agency is contributing a module called Lunar IHAB, and it will need to be positioned with precision. The skills tested on this first crewed flight lay the groundwork for those complex operations. Every trajectory calculated and every system verified brings humanity closer to a sustained presence on and around the Moon.